Hi everyone. It's been so long. Oh my god. The last time I posted was exactly, I think, 5 months ago. But yeah, I'm back. Okay, so a lot happened in the past 5 months. I moved to a new house that's been renovated inside. So this is my studio, which used to be a tangerine barn, should I say, storage unit. Oh, you see my little book shelf there that I built with the tangerine box. I have two dogs. Made some little tea for myself. I'm making this video really late. It's like past midnight now. Only because it's very quiet. So it's good for sound. But I still need my tea to do this video. That's good. This is actually a little side note, but this is tea from Tongdo Temple. And it's a lotus tea that they make, the monks made, and it's so good. If you guys are ever there, I recommend buying their lotus tea. Okay, the book that I'm going to talk about today is Barack Obama's book, his second book, The Audacity of Hope. So I read this book for the first time right after I graduated from university in 2009. I bought this book, I can see, end of 2008 in Korea actually, but I remember reading it in the summer that I graduated in 2009. So I read it again after 10 years. This book was written in 2006, so it's been 13 years since it was first published. When he was running for president first time, I was in college, and it was such a big thing. And universities are often liberal and progressive, so of course everybody was rooting for him, and there was the famous hope poster. At the time, I thought it was kind of ridiculous how all these people thought that this one man can change all the problems in the US and the world. I mean, I did not like him, but I thought that it was ridiculous to believe that one person can change everything, especially in a democratic system. And if he was like a dictator, yes, maybe people who believe in him be like, now everything can change and, we can have our way. But it's not like that. I mean, it's the land of democracy. I mean, I don't know. So I had a lot of doubts. I guess I was always a non-believer in politics in some ways. It's ironic because I'm obsessed with American politics, Korean politics, politicians, what's happening in the world. I follow the news like crazy, addicted person. But honestly, I really don't like any politicians. Like none, really. But after I read this, I remember 10 years ago thinking, like the book felt so genuine, like so sincere in what he believed in. I think the best part about this book is self-reflectiveness. Of course, I'm gonna have something critical about it, because that's also the nature of who I am. But I find his position on American exceptionalism very, very problematic, which is a part of patriotism that Americans have, patriotism and pride that Americans have. This idea that America is special and its history is unique and special, it's a tricky thing. But his love of his country is shown in both ways, in believing in American exceptionalism, but also in reflecting what also went wrong, and how other people are doing it better, and how there's also space for improvement and growth, that it's not a perfect place. That's the gist of my understanding of this book. I would say that whoever is interested in politics, contemporary politics, but also just to understand the best and worst of America, I think this book is really good. I mean, but I thought I would just read a couple of passages. I understood the skepticism, but that there was and always had been another tradition to politics, a tradition that stretched from the days of the country's founding to the glory of the civil rights movement, a tradition based on the simple idea that we have a stake in one another, and that what binds us together is greater than what drives us apart, and that if enough people believe in the truth of that proposition and act on it, then we might not solve every problem, but we can get something meaningful done. This part in the prologue speaks a lot about his conviction as a politician. This very Buddhist idea that we are all connected. Like, my life is connected to that person's life, and then the other person's life, and essentially the whole world, and even the trees and all living things. Maybe we don't think this way anymore, in the sense of how we're all connected. And he points out, like, we have a stake in one another. I think this is a very important concept for the idea of freedom. In the chapter Republicans and Democrats, I am convinced that whenever we exaggerate or demonize, oversimplify, or overstate our case, we lose. Whenever we dumb down the political debate, we lose. For it's precisely the pursuit of ideological purity, the rigid orthodoxy, and the sheer predictability of our current political debate that keeps us from finding new ways to meet the challenges we face as a country. It's what keeps us locked in either-or thinking. The notion that we can have only big government or no government. The assumption that we must either tolerate 46 million without health insurance or embrace socialized medicine. I mean, in this chapter, he talks a lot about these extremes, like arguing for the argument's sake and trying to win rather than solve problems. Okay, so you win the argument, then what? There's no action that follows, I think. And that's the biggest problem right now. So here he has a little bit of that American exceptionalism part, which I, like, on the note, I wrote, big no, exclamation mark. We did not have to go through any of the violent upheavals that Europe was forced to endure as it shed its feudal past. Our passage from an agricultural to an industrial society was eased by the sheer size of the continent, vast tracts of land and abundant resources that allowed new immigrants to continually remake themselves. I wrote a big no in this passage because, excuse me, you guys slaughtered Native Americans, encamped them, and intoxicated them, and tried to erase their race in order to justify you being in this land. Yeah, maybe there wasn't no upheavals, but there was definitely violence against a group of people. It wasn't just open land, empty, and wilderness. There were people, there were natives living there. And I feel like sometimes Americans totally forget about that. I went to elementary school in the US for 2 years, and then I came back for high school. So I got some pre-college education in the US, and I remember in high school that the 3 years that I had to take American history, I don't remember much about learning about Native American situation, or even slavery for that matter. I remember the emphasis was on, obviously, the founding fathers, the Civil War, all the, I don't know, Lincoln and all that. I mean, I'm not saying they're not important, they are, but there's definitely a sense of not erasure, but almost propaganda-ish. History education is really jaded, and I feel like a lot of the history that I put together is kind of on my own since college in the libraries, like researching about some stuff and then end up reading about some history and then realizing, oh shit, never learned this in school. I mean, he does mention Native American once in the book, I think. I was also in Hamptons. I was in Hamptons, and there is a reserve there, Native American reserve there, and we met this one guy. He was a young person, but he was very outspoken about the situation, and also they were going through some legal situation against the government to ensure the land that they are in, they have been for a while. All of these issues are real, Yet, unfortunately, in this book, it's not very present. The first chapter's quote about the, having a stake in one another appears in the values chapter. And he says, I believe a stronger sense of empathy would tilt the balance of our current politics in favor of those people who are struggling in this society. After all, if they are like us, then their struggles are our own. If we fail to help, we diminish ourselves. Talk is cheap. Like any value, empathy must be acted upon. When I was a community organizer back in the 80s, I would often challenge neighborhood leaders by asking them where they put their time, energy, and money. Those are the true test of what we value, I tell them, regardless of what we like to tell ourselves. If we aren't willing to pay a price for our values, if we aren't willing to make some sacrifices in order to realize them, then we should ask ourselves whether we truly believe in them at all. By these standards, at least, it sometimes appears that Americans today value nothing so much as being rich, thin, young, famous, safe, and entertained. I mean, I love how he writes so clearly. I mean, he's a politician, obviously. Clarity is so important. Every political speech or politicians use vocabulary and language at the level of like sixth grader or something, because it's important for them to get their words across as many people as possible, educated or not educated. So this book, it's really dense, but it's so easy to read because it's in that kind of language. And the quote that I just read, it's just, where you put your time, energy, and money, that's what you really believe in. What you say in public and what you do in your private life, I think, is very separated today. Ironically, because social media is all about sharing your private life. But in some ways, is it genuine, or is it it's very hard to be critical about oneself. So, of course, it's gonna be biased what you post on social media. So this is something that I think about a lot today since I moved to Jeju, because this question, where do I want to put my time, energy, and money in? Jeju Island, I felt like this place I thought is worth my time, energy, and money, basically. If we aren't willing to pay a price for our values, if we aren't willing to make some sacrifices in order to realize them, then we should ask ourselves whether we truly believe in them at all. I think leaving New York was some kind of sacrifice for me. I went to school there. I made all these connections. I dedicated my time and energy and money there. Leaving it was hard, but I thought that what I value was here. to be closer to the environment, the land, to have affordable space to think and to live and to be conscious about what we consume, how we live, and all those things. So this passage really touched me. And then when he said that, by these standards, at least, it sometimes appears that Americans today value nothing so much as being rich, thin, young, famous, safe, and entertained, which is so true. I mean, like, he understands America so well. Everybody in the US wants to be rich. Everybody wants to be famous, and they want security and entertained. Everything in the US, I feel like, is about entertainment. And in some ways, art is about that too. And politics today. I mean, come on, honestly, I'm addicted to like Trump news. Every morning I wake up and I'm like, Trump news, like what crazy thing. It's so entertaining. I mean, like, Americans are so entertaining, which is the best and the worst part of them. Yeah, we're all addicted to American entertainment. I'm gonna do like a part 2 of this book because I only went like maybe like, I don't know, what is that, like 1/3, 1/4 of the book. Yeah, this book, there's so much to talk about in this book. Can't do it in one session. I'll do it again tomorrow night. Okay, good night.